Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Sigma Prism channel. Today, I have the creator of the Blitz trading card game. His name is Mick. Welcome, Mick.
Hello, happy to be here.
So, I've seen you across the ergo socials, particularly on Twitter. You've been working very hard on this dream of yours, your vision here, with this trading card game that's entirely digital and on the blockchain.
hmm
I don't know too much about it, and that's why we're here today. So, what is this game, Blitz?
Yeah, so Blitz is sort of my reimagining of what a trading card game could be, utilizing the technology of the blockchain to improve upon what has already been done. That's probably the one-liner. Played games my entire life, past 20 years. Spent years in games, years and years in games. I think just in RuneScape alone, I have something like 8,000 hours. That's 300 days, if you were curious. So I love games and I also love technology. And unfortunately, blockchain has sort of been pushed aside and tarnished a bit by social media, especially by gamers. And rightfully so to some degree, because these gamers have been beat up, man. They've been beat up. If you're a gamer, you've been beat up. I've been beat up. I spent so much money on loot boxes to probably pay off my house, right? Like the skins and the loot boxes and the battle passes, and now NFTs. They're just causing a lot of friction with the people that we're trying to serve. So my broader goal is to improve upon that with this game.
Right off the bat, how does blockchain, in your opinion, improve uh, a digital trading card game? What helps it right off the bat just to take it to a different level? What can you do with it?
Yeah, so that's probably the hardest question. I think this is the question people get wrong the most because, frankly, the blockchain itself doesn't matter that much. Most of what
Mhm.
you could do with a different technology. I mean, think of the Steam store is a good example. So Steam allows players to exchange like skins and guns, or like the CS:GO exchange system where you can trade guns back and forth or whatever. But what a blockchain does that no other technology can do is make that character of yours, that thing, persist outside of the game that it was created in. So to me, all a blockchain is a database, and it's a public database. That's all it is at the end of the day. It's very good at handling transactions between two people. That's it. That's all a blockchain does. So like if you're investing in the blockchain, that is what you're investing is how much value is there in me sending you something directly. So what value it brings to gamers and what value it brings to the developers and to the community is that, let's say Blitz, very successful for the first year, fingers crossed, right? It's super successful, right? But let's say something happens. I go through a tragic event in my life. The servers have to come down. It's just a sad day for everybody. Um, Game's doing great. Like people love it, whatever, but it has to come down. All right. Okay. Well, if I design Blitz to be only on Firebase or Amazon Web Services, that's it. That's it. It's gone. All your cards that you collected, gone. Everything that you've owned and you want it, gone. If Blitz comes down, if the server's shut off, you lose it, it's gone. So what blockchain lets you do, assuming you adopt an open source mindset, so like I give you Blitz's code, is that even if I find myself in an unfortunate situation, let's say you're a developer, you could just spin Blitz right back up. And then the people who have those cards on their wallets can continue to play the game. So that's a big benefit of the blockchain, right? You can't do that with other technology. Very unique, very special with the blockchain. The other thing that I personally have interest in, and I'm sorry I'm going on a tangent, but this is where my passion is, ironically, uh, is now imagine this. Imagine you at Sigma Prism, you really love Margot, you love my character, or you love that character behind you on your screen there. And you're like, man, I'm making my own video game. I would love to have Margot in my video game, but I don't really know if like I can afford that IP, that intellectual property. Maybe you want to use, Mickey Mouse in your video game. Like none of us can afford that. The nice thing about blockchain is because it's a public database, all you need to be able to use Margot in your video game to still give benefit to the original project is whatever Margot's unique ID is, right? Because if you program your video game and you look for Margot's ID, then you bring Margot into your game. Now she's in your game, and you still are benefiting me because you're using the original source of Margot. That's something that has not yet been done, and I'm going to make quite the video on that soon. So more to come.
Yeah, very interesting. It's obvious that you're very passionate about what you're doing here. Before we get into maybe gameplay mechanics and
Yeah, man.
how this will live on the Ergo blockchain, um, is there anybody else other than you working on this, or is this really a passion project from the ground up? Mick is the guy
I
for now.
wish. I wish. Yeah. So Blitz is a team of about 15 people
Okay.
in two groups. So Blitz number one entirely self-funded. If I didn't have this background behind me, you would see a bunch of trading cards on the wall. So I'm funding Blitz through buying and trading cards in real life. So like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and whatnot.
Oh,
I've been
wow.
I've been fortunate enough to make a good amount of money over many years of doing that. So needless to say, I know a lot about trading cards. So whether or not the game succeeds or fails, you can trust that I know a lot about trading cards because I have hundreds of very expensive and valuable trading cards. That being said, I've sold off a large part of my collection to fund this game. Transparently, because I don't hide any of this, my budget's about 50,000 over about 2 years, which is a good amount of money, but not that much when it comes to a full video game. So I have to very carefully choose who I work with and why I work with them and what their interests are. The team, though, very passionate about my team, love my team. I have Max, who is actually an artist from the Ukraine. So I was working with him before Russia invaded. And that added a whole other, craziness to the project. He's designed pretty much all the UI you see on the website and in the video game. He's designed all of it. Great guy, love him to death. 9 artists. I won't go through each of them, but each of them bring their own style to Blitz. So 9 different artists, all freelance artists that have stuck with me now for almost a year, which is kind of interesting as a freelancer. So it must mean I'm doing something good to keep these people around. You have Lato Pixel, who's helping me with some of the blockchain development. You have ErgoPad, specifically LGD, who's helping with the blockchain contract. You have Clarence Yap, who is our composer. He's also the director of Harvard's lab program in Massachusetts, ironically enough. So pretty
Oh, wow.
interesting guy. Yeah, pretty interesting dude. Super nice guy. Been great to work with and has made some awesome music. Awesome music. Web developer, he goes by N. And then my 2 partners are mentioned ErgoPad. They're helping me with some of the contract stuff. And then Kashav Infotech, which is helping me with some of the game development. I'm doing a lot of it myself, especially the authentication and like security stuff, because frankly, I don't really trust anybody to do it. And I want to be able to explain to people why it was done a certain way once it's all open source. But they're helping me do some of the other stuff like the deck builder and stuff that's just frankly tedious. It's not necessarily hard. It's just very time consuming on top of everything else, as you might imagine. So a lot of help, man. A lot of help making this thing happen.
When are we to expect a public version out to play, like complete?
Yeah,
I know,
complete.
yeah, hard to say. I hate to
Yeah.
throw that difficult question at you, but
Yeah, no, it's okay. Like I won't give a firm date, but my goal has always been by the end of this year, like really early next year, I'd like a playable alpha. Of course, those cards wouldn't be on the blockchain yet. They would just be local cards, but we would need that to try to balance it before its release anyways. So ideally, and I think we're on target to do it at this point, I would like an alpha end of this year, early next year. And then assuming the alpha goes well and we can integrate ergo wallets and or cardano wallets successfully, which I think we will be able to at this point, nothing's really stopping us from releasing the game in like a true alpha state. So probably won't have flashy effects or all the sounds that you would expect. I'm sure there'll be bugs, but my whole mantra is I don't want to sell anything until the game's completely playable. Might not be perfect at first, but I want you to be able to at least play it. I want you to go and get a card and then go see that card in the game if you want to play the game. That's one of our principles over here.
Perfect. I think your timeline has been always a realistic one. You're not over promising, you're not under promising. There's obviously, if you go on to the socials, which I'll put in the description, there's always work being done. It isn't all just smoke and mirrors. There is real work being done. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to interview you. I mean, I think you going to the Cardano event, which I forgot the name of it, I think it's CNFT Con.
That's right. Mm-hmm.
You in a booth, sort of like one man arming it, like, hey, come check us out, new community that is so much bigger than Ergo's right now. It's great to see that type of initiative. I know you don't live in Las Vegas, right?
No.
It wasn't like you just hopped out of the desert down the street. You put in a lot of blood, sweat, and tears, and your team as well. And the artwork is phenomenal. It's obvious that you guys are really trying to go for the what would you call that? Astonishing, professional, like Blizzard type of artwork.
Yes.
And that is really commendable. So with that being said, I suppose the trickier parts of a trading card game would be how you implement the gameplay mechanics. What are the rules involved? Where do you conjure them up? Do you take from existing card games and other things and other features that you've liked out of previous games that you've experienced yourself and try to combine all of those mechanics? Or
yeah, man, that's a really good question, actually, and something that didn't dive too deeply in at the conference. So sort of a fresh question here. The idea from Blitz stems from, as we've talked about, sort of my copious gaming and card trading experience. And I've also played, of course, Hearthstone, Gwent, Magic, Arena, Gods Unchained is actually a cryptocurrency game, a blockchain game on the Ethereum network. Played them all. And for Blitz and card games in general, like the people who play those games aren't really looking for that much complexity. It's like, if you pick up a Pokemon card, you're not trying to play 3D chess, right? You just want to play some Pokemon. So the design principles of Blitz stem from simplicity, which I would say Hearthstone does pretty well. So a lot of the UI is influenced by how Hearthstone has laid out their UI in the game. And I also want to prepare for allowing people to play on mobile, because ironically enough, even though I'm not a huge fan of mobile games myself, card games are actually really good on mobile. You have a tablet, you can use your finger to drag and drop them on the board. So card games have this interesting intersection of like hardcore gamers and then casual gamers. It appeals to both of them. So I'm trying to make decisions that keep it simple enough that both people are happy, but still bring some amount of value from looking at it, that you're super bored whenever you log in.
yeah. Can you describe where you get the sort of imagination for the characters? For example, the one behind you. Where does that come from? Do you have any other members on the team bringing that to the table as well, or are you solely taking from reference materials that you've experienced and things that you just want to see yourself as a gamer?
That's a really good question. Honestly, the hardest one you've asked me. No, I mean we don't really use much reference material. So what normally happens is I think of the clan that I want in the game. So Blitz will have lore and, like miniature novels written, and we've already started writing some of that lore. The idea is there's this master race, let's call it, little cliche, but basically this race of like supreme beings who are going and poaching planets, right? So they're stealing planets to bring them into their universe, into their sort of game. And the whole point of this is to then coax these planets of people and societies to then wage war against one another. And that's only for their entertainment, basically. So
Hmm.
the idea is these supreme beings, they will uh, provide goods and resources and allow your society to prosper the more you win. So, the masquerades, like that's the character behind you is from the masquerades, and Margot, who is sort of like everybody's favorite, the red jester that you see everywhere.
Yeah.
So she's the leader of the masquerade. So the masquerades, every character in the masquerades wears mask. It's just sort of their staple, and there's some background to that in the lore that I won't get to. But at the end of the day, each clan is an amalgamation of different races, and they all have to come together per what the supreme beings have told them to try to win these battles. Because if they don't, there's also a disbenefit. So they'll start to lose resources, and society will be negatively influenced by these people.
Hmm.
So there's basically there's a need to do it. It gives a pretty good excuse of why you have all these different characters working together on a planet. And each basically planet, each clan, like the masquerades is a clan, they all wear masks, but like the character behind me is Mios. And Mios is from sort of like an old dark Egyptian society. It's sort of like a planet who has unfortunately stayed in its old ways. And so there's some interesting nuances there with how they approach stuff. But yeah, the inspirations, I mean, I didn't really answer your question. The inspiration just kind of comes from I've read, I have a whole stack of like RPG fiction books behind me. I mean, quite literally, maybe tens of thousands of pages worth of literature that I've read over the last few years, and all the games I've played, I'm sure inspire some of what I'm bringing forward.
Perfect. I couldn't help but think of capitalistic societies
Mm,
in different countries, kind of
yeah, man.
with how you describe the game. I kind
Yeah,
of, minus the masks, it kind of
yeah,
feels like that is
yeah.
kind of a reflection of real life. No, you gotta
Oh, yeah.
fight and get together in a team, and the
Mm-hmm.
more you do so successfully, more resources you get. The less you do so,
Yep.
the more society crumbles and falls, right?
Yep. Yeah. We see that a lot today, right? With the damn war that's going on and all that. Like, there's really no need for that if people could come together. So yeah, it's really funny you picked up on that. And I think as more lore is released, I don't want to get into too much of that, but we'll start to dive into some of those things and specifically what these supreme beings are actually trying to see. Like why are they doing this outside of the entertainment, right? So we'll dig into some of that. But anyways, I'm a big fan of lore. And I think, I mean, that's what 99%, 99.9% of cryptocurrency games, related games, don't have right now. None of them have any bit of like background story whatsoever. Maybe like a couple, right? I can name like two. But the vast majority of them don't have any of that. So we really want Blitz to be a game first, like do the game, make the game. And then from there, we'll see what happens.
So, with certain games on the blockchain actually providing, ironically, more profitability for some people in the world in real life. I think of Southeast Asia. I've heard stories out of there where Ethermon, that
Mhm.
kind of blockchain game, it's actually providing more money for those players than actual jobs with the wages that they earn over there. It's pretty complicated. But how does Blitz intend to use kind of tokenized assets and transaction fees, and how do you develop kind of a profit model is where I'm getting at, that would make sense, that would be sustainable and still accessible for everybody to play, unless you have like a free version or a paid version, or how
Mhm.
does have you thought about how that model might look like? This is an
Yeah,
entirely new kind of way of doing things, and we see like Ubisoft and a bunch of big video game companies trying to get involved with NFTs and
yeah.
putting them in game and all that. So I was just wondering if you had any insight on that.
Yeah, in fact, this is the video that I'm going to make that's probably like a Jordan Peterson's 20-minute sit down and let me tell you a story type of video.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Unfortunately, um, the way that cryptocurrency is heading with these NFT games will never be the thing that takes crypto to the next level. And I feel very strongly about that. As a gamer, here's a couple things that seem obvious, but I guess they're not to the developers who make these games. What game do you play to earn? I don't play any games to earn. I play a game to play a game. So let's
Mm-hmm.
just, state that right out the gate. Now, this play to earn mentality has only come up in mass media because of the blockchain, but it's been happening for years. You have RuneScape gold farming, you have World of Warcraft gold farming, whose players and these people that you're describing, they do the same thing, except it's not on the blockchain. So, some of these people are playing to earn. They are treating it as their job. The difference is, the key difference is that the developers at Blizzard, not yet at least, are developing World of Warcraft not for play to earn, but for the player. Whereas the cryptocurrency developers, these crypto blockchain developers, are creating a game whose purpose is play to earn. Those are two totally different things, right? And that the latter is not going to be as readily accepted by gamers, because gamers frankly don't care about that. They just want to play a good game. My mantra is, if you make a good game and you can happen to just earn other resources while you play it, that's a different mentality. You're not
Mm-hmm.
developing a game whose focus is on the financial aspect, but maybe if you're a dedicated player, you play 20 games a month, you buy a lot of cards. Maybe you can take those cards and exchange them for some in-game currency. Really no different than what some games do today. Like on World of Warcraft, you can take, a legendary mount and sell it for 10,000 gold. You could take that 10,000 gold and sell it to some website for 40 bucks. It's not really much different than that. People just pretend that it is.
Mm-hmm.
And most of these people developing blockchain games haven't played any damn games to know that. It's very frustrating. So I get very frustrated with this, because this is the problem. This is actually the problem that we're seeing right now. This is why gamers hate the blockchain, is because of this development mentality. So with Blitz, like, first and foremost, it's a video game. They'll be free to play cards because it's a free to play game. If you call your blockchain game free to play and you can't play without buying something, it's not free to play. Like, you can download it and do stuff, but you can't really play the game. So Blitz will be completely free to play with enough cards that I know you could be competitive if you were good enough with those cards. So that's the first thing you can do to kind of lower the barrier to entry. The second thing is avoiding this NFT style mindset that so many people have adopted. So NFTs, right? I'll give you a comparison. So like in Blitz and with Pokemon, let's use Pokemon. Let's say you and me have a Charizard, right? From the original base set first edition, right? We're both very happy because we're both rich people at this point, because we both own a first edition Charizard. But that being said, right, let's assume they're similar condition. There's no indication which of those Charizards were printed first. I could give you my Charizard and you can give me yours, and it's not like either one of them are more valuable than the other. But with NFTs, that's not the case. With NFTs, they all have mint numbers. So you might have Charizard number 1, that's worth $10,000, and I might have Charizard number 3000 that's worth $3. And that's pretty messed up. So with Blitz, we're not really using your typical NFT structure. In fact, we put it on the Twitter and social media because it's the only thing that people pay attention to. They don't really understand the concept of tokenomics yet enough to talk about it. But in Blitz, like a Margot card is going to be a Margot card, going back to our original discussion. So like if you and me trade a Margot back and forth, they're the same exact card. It's just a token. It's a Margot token, right? And that token is the character, and that's the card. But it's not an NFT. It's not like it's a one of one. There's many Margos that could exist if enough people open the packs to get them. So the second way to bring us to a close that you can lower the barrier to entry is to stop adopting these greedy mindsets that the people who make loot boxes and Overwatch and the people who have battle passes all adopt, which is making people spend an exorbitant amount of money to play your game, right? Like with Blitz, you'll have $5 packs, just about what Pokemon charges today. You just like with Hearthstone, just like with these other card games, people are very used to that. You'll buy the packs, you'll get your cards. If you get a Margot, you can damn well bet the other person's Margot is the exact same as yours. There is no difference. Now you can trade Margot for some other cards because you have a duplicate, so on and so forth. And at the end of the day, this just creates a community that is, one, more accessible because people understand trading cards. Like I can give you a Charizard and know that it's worth a Blastoise and a Venusaur, right? We can make that trade. But you can't really do that with NFTs, right? Because they all have these rarity attributes and they all have these like little things that make them more valuable, or like these weird monetary incentives that make a player not be able to play the game at its highest potential unless they spend some ridiculous amount of money. And I want to do away with that whole concept because I think it's bullcrap. I usually cuss a lot, but I'm trying to hold myself back.
No problem. We're here to open source the language
Yeah.
out to
Good,
everybody.
good. I like that. Good.
Yeah, the more I think about what you're describing, since I came into the interview without knowing a lot,
Yeah,
is
interesting. Honestly, I'm excited to see how you take this.
yeah, well, I can see how the real life ecosystem and the market that opened up, for example, with Pokemon cards or any other number of trading card games where there's a rarity attribute and aspect to it over time, for having a first edition, this and that. And that entire market is it's niche, but it's very robust. It's very big. It's kind of like the sneaker culture of going and back and getting, I don't know what, Air Force Ones and all that.
Yeah.
Like it's niche, but it has so many moving parts.
Yep.
And the longer that timeline of continuation goes, the more complex it can get.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because, for example, with the sneaker stuff, one of the big things is checking for authenticity, which you could just remove that right away by putting this on the blockchain.
Yep.
The second thing is that you mentioned that you made like 50K over the course of many years trading.
Well, frankly, I made more than that, but the game's budget, I'm trying to keep it to 50,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not going to audit your finances, but the point is you can make a lot of money getting into these different niche markets, and they exist for many other things that are outside of, sneakers and trading cards. Now, when you add the blockchain element to that, and if you actually make a really, really sound design for a video game, and put the players first, as you're mentioning, not trying to make it a greed fest of OpenSea collections and NFT trading, just trying to get to the bottom line, who has the most ETH. That's like a multi-million-dollar idea that has yet to be tapped.
Nobody does it.
Sure, I'm sure it's
Nobody does it.
in the works with big gaming companies, but the continuation that you could get with a trading card game versus
Yep.
trying to update the graphics of a I don't know, like Final Fantasy VII remake, and then
Yeah.
remake number two, and then what happens after remake number three?
Right.
The thing is dead.
Yep.
I think the trading card game would be the most liquid form of being able to develop iterations and bring the original Series One collection or something like
Yes.
that. Just bring it up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
okay.
That's right.
So
That's right. Yeah. Because it makes it more, and that's where we have to start talking to gamers. Because right now they just see it, in which most of them are like these weird monetary transactional schemes. But if we
right.
approach it in a different way, if we say, like, imagine if you could use your original Charizard in competitive games today for Pokemon, right now, you could bring your Charizard to this competitive game. Then they'll be like, wait a second, you mean like this card persists and can be
Mm.
adjusted and like and validated and like authentic, like all this good stuff comes if you forget about NFTs and just forget about that weird like one of one mindset and instead think of it more like tokens where it's a currency, then the currency is the card like Margot, and that currency can just persist. It can just Margot's always going to be Margot, just like Bitcoin's always going to be Bitcoin, and you instead leverage that aspect to make the video game and not the NFT mess that we have found ourselves in.
Yeah. Now, why did you decide to build on Ergo first? I know you have, after your experience and exposure to the CNFT con and the
Yeah.
and kind of the feedback and resonance you got in from the Cardano community, you want to make it cross chain, which should
Mm-hmm.
be much easier to do than, let's say, something like
Yeah.
account based models like
Yep.
Ethereum. So
Yep.
extended UTXO chains going cross back and forth. You have a lot of camaraderie
Yep.
between both chains. But why did you decide with Ergo first? Where did that come from to build your game? Because this is ultimately your child. Why
Yeah,
put your
man.
child on this platform? Because there's so many that you could have chosen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's actually the question I got the most at the conference, believe it or not. That's what every single person, like upwards of 30 people, asked me, just coming by. And I usually give the same answer. So for me, I've been in blockchain now for like just about 6 years. And, I remember when F was still double digits and they barely had any concept of what smart contracts were going to be used for. So I started in the Ethereum community and basically followed every single project they've ever made since the inception of Ethereum and smart contracts as a whole. I kind of fell out of the loop a little bit after the first big crash, but I did well for myself and I learned a lot. And I came back into it a little recently and I started just like looking at other projects. I actually got quite involved with the project called Chia, which is a proof of space-time consensus, very unique. Uses hard drives instead of graphics cards or CPUs. But anyways, so I got really involved with that. And I actually saw people, they kept mentioning like Ergo for whatever, like people would bring it up, like just kind of randomly. I always thought it was kind of weird because like Chia 1 isn't that welcoming of a community. And 2, people really didn't get offended by it. Like, most people will, if you go to a blockchain subreddit and you like try to talk about a different blockchain, people lose their mind. But I noticed that not everybody was getting upset when they mentioned Ergo. So I was like, why is that? So then I started looking at Ergo and I joined the subreddit probably when it was only around a couple to a few thousand members. And I just started looking at their principles and I started better understanding their tokenomics. And then, I figured out about the relationship between Charles and Alex. And I read the manifesto and in the Discord, like you can basically talk to the developers directly, which is very strange. Like that's super weird if you think about it. Like I can't go talk to Bram Cohen on Chia. Like that'll never happen. But I can get a hold to Alex on Discord. That's kind of weird, right? It's like you could ping Charles, like, "What's up, Charles?" what's going on, man? Like, how you doing? Like, it's probably won't be that casual, but that really pushed me, man, because I'm like, all right, you got good principles. You got a very kind community who other communities don't seem to get upset with, which was very strange. And there's like hardly any projects on it right now for no good reason other than that nobody has done it. So the benefit to me was accessibility, right? So I have access to developers and people, and then sort of like easily build notoriety. Because without there being that many projects, if you develop something that is good, it's like people are going to take notice of it quick because there's not much to choose from anyways. So those are kind of all the thought processes I went through when coming to that decision. And I was weighing specifically Chia and Ergo. So I was very close between these two because Chia, I think is also quite interesting, but the community is what pushed me into it because I'm just like, I wouldn't get this sort of exposure in Chia. Like, I just wouldn't have happened. And with Ergo, it happened in like 4 months, right? Like quick, super fast. So that's hard to do. Certainly not doable on Ethereum unless you pay a lot of money, right? A lot of money to get your name in front of people. So yeah, that's it, man. That's the answer.
What about the Cardano side now that you've come back from pretty much their conference?
Yeah,
And
man.
I would assume that the same type of welcoming nature of Ergo you also found with Cardano, and now you're looking at other options where you can bring in both communities together and quite
Yes.
frankly benefit from their extraordinarily more gargantuan community than
Huge.
what we currently have right now. You're
Yep.
talking about top 10 blockchain,
Yep.
you know?
Yeah, it's honestly good for everybody. So Charles, even at the conference, he spoke about the need for cross-chain collaboration. Because if blockchain succeeds, it won't be because of one chain. It'll be because of a bunch of chains that did things intelligently.
Hmm.
Um, and I very much believe that. It's just like with any other technology, right? Like you could apply that to a lot of things. But at the end of the day, you need competition, but you can be friendly with your competition and you can both innovate together. So with Cardano,